When I first stepped out of the airport in New York City, a cold wind hit my face. I had never felt such cold before. Back home, winters were gentle. But here, in the United States, everything felt sharp: the weather, the noise, the lights, the pace of life. I had come with one suitcase, a few $100s, and a dream to study medicine and become a doctor, but there was a problem. I barely spoke English. At the airport, the officer had asked, "Purpose of your visit?" I only understood the word visit. I stuttered, "Study, school, doctor." He gave a small smile and stamped my passport. That moment made me realize how weak my English truly was. Cityscape at dusk. A tough first week. My uncle, who had been living in Brooklyn for years, picked me up. His apartment was small, but he gave me a corner with a mattress and a blanket. I was grateful. I couldn't afford anything else. In my first week, I tried to explore the neighborhood. Every sign, every conversation, every radio ad felt like a puzzle. I went into a cafe and ordered something simple. "Coffee, please." The server asked, "Hot or iced?" I froze. People behind me waited. My hands shook. Why? "I don't know," I whispered. The server finally smiled kindly and said, "Hot coffee is fine." "Yes?" I nodded quickly. I walked out feeling embarrassed. If I couldn't order coffee, how could I become a doctor? Blue book. The promise I made to myself that night. Lying on my mattress, I looked at the ceiling and made a secret promise: I will learn English. No matter how long it takes. I bought a cheap notebook from the dollar store, blue cover, thin pages. I wrote my first words: the appointment, patient, the hospital, medicine. Every day I added more. In the mornings, I watched English videos. In the afternoons, I listened to people on the subway. In the evenings, I practiced speaking by myself. It was slow. It was tiring, but I kept going on. Coming bus. The first sign of hope. One cold morning, I was waiting for the bus. An elderly man with a cane came beside me and asked, "Do you know if the B46 already passed?" The words didn't blend together. I understood them, all of them. I said, confidently, "No, sir. It didn't pass yet. It comes in about 10 minutes. He nodded. "Thank you, young man. Appreciate it." As he walked away, I felt something inside me shift for the first time. I believed, I can do this. I can learn English. I can become a doctor. And so my real journey began. My life in America slowly became a routine, simple but demanding. Every morning I woke up before sunrise, made a cup of cheap instant coffee, and reviewed my blue notebook. I repeated words again and again until they finally sounded natural. But learning English wasn't enough. I needed money. Briefcase. My first job in the USA. My uncle helped me find work in a small grocery store owned by a Pakistani family in Brooklyn. It wasn't glamorous. I stocked shelves, carried heavy boxes, cleaned aisles, and sometimes helped at the counter. The owner, Mr. Rahman, spoke good English but was patient with me. One day he said, "You must talk to customers. Good practice. Don't be scared." I was scared, terrified, actually, but he insisted. So I stood behind the counter, trying to look confident. A customer came up and asked, "Do you guys sell organic eggs?" I panicked. I knew the word eggs, but organic sounded like a medical term. I froze, smiled awkwardly, and pointed toward the dairy section. The customer nodded and walked away. I felt my heart racing. Rahman tapped my shoulder gently. "You did fine. Don't worry. You learn by trying." That day, I realized something important: I would never improve if I avoided conversations. So I pushed myself. Books, community college English classes. After 2 months of saving, I enrolled in evening ESL, English as a second language, classes at a local community college. The classroom was filled with immigrants, people from China, Mexico, Somalia, Turkey, Brazil. Different faces, different stories, but the same dream: to build a better life. My teacher, Ms. Thompson, had short gray hair and a warm smile. She spoke slowly, clearly, and always encouraged us. On the first day she said, "Listen carefully. Practice every day. And don't be afraid of mistakes." She made us stand up and introduce ourselves. When it was my turn, my voice shook. My name is Amir. I am from a small town, and I want to become a doctor. The room became silent, then everyone clapped. Ms. Thompson smiled proudly. "That's a beautiful goal. And you can reach it." Her words strengthened something inside me. Hospital. A moment that changed everything. One night, while coming home from class, I saw a man collapse on the sidewalk near the subway entrance. People screamed. Someone shouted, "Call 911." Without thinking, I rushed toward the man. He was old, shaking, struggling to breathe. I remembered my first aid training from back home. I spoke to him slowly in English. Sir, stay calm. I'm helping you. Just breathe. Others stood back, unsure what to do. I checked his pulse, helped him sit upright, and waited with him until the paramedics arrived. When the ambulance doors closed, one of the paramedics turned to me and said, "You handled that well. You ever think about working in medicine?" I smiled. "I want to be a doctor one day." He nodded. "Then keep going. You're on the right path." His words stayed with me the entire night. That moment convinced me that I wasn't chasing an impossible dream. My English was improving. My confidence was growing, and for the first time, America didn't feel like a foreign land. It felt like the place where my future could truly begin. My days became longer, but they also felt meaningful. In the mornings, I worked at the grocery store. In the evenings, I attended English classes late at night. I studied medical vocabulary from online videos and library books. Life was exhausting, but I finally felt like I was moving forward. The blue notebook grows thicker. My small blue notebook, which once held only a handful of words, was now filled with pages of vocabulary, prescription, surgeon, symptoms, emergency room diagnosis. I memorized every word with the same seriousness soldiers memorize commands. Sometimes, while stocking shelves at work, I would whisper medical terms under my breath. Customers probably thought I was strange, but I didn't care. One evening, Miss Thompson noticed my notebook and said, "You're studying medical English already? That's impressive." I smiled shyly. "I want to start pre-med studies. But my English still too weak." She shook her head. "No. You're improving. Keep going. The hardest part is believing you can succeed." Her confidence in me became a fuel I didn't know I needed. My first college placement test. After several months of studying, I felt ready to take the community college placement test. If I passed, I could enroll in real academic classes, biology, chemistry, math, the building blocks of medical school. But on the morning of the test, fear hit me. I sat in a quiet room with other students. The computer screen glowed brightly. My hands trembled. The English reading section was the hardest. Some words felt familiar, like old friends. Others were new, confusing, or too fast, but I kept trying. When I finished, I walked out feeling unsure. Was my English enough? Did I understand everything correctly? A week later, I received an email. I hesitated before opening it. I passed, not with a perfect score, not even a very high score, but enough to start academic classes. I stared at the screen for a long time, then I whispered to myself, step by step, "I'm getting closer." The money problem. Passing the test was great, but now I had a new problem: tuition fees. Community college wasn't extremely expensive, but for someone working part-time in a grocery store, it felt impossible. One night, sitting at the kitchen table, I told my uncle, "I don't know if I can pay for classes." He looked up from his tea and said, "Amir, every dream has a price. You pay it with money, time, or sleep. Sometimes all three." He reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope. "This is not a gift," he said, "it's a loan. You will pay me back when you become a doctor." I opened the envelope and felt tears in my eyes. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to cover my first semester. I stood up and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Uncle. I won't waste this chance." He nodded proudly. "I know you won't." The first day of real college, my first day of biology class, felt like walking into another world. Students chatted confidently in English. They had laptops, colorful notebooks, and expensive backpacks. I felt like a stranger again. But then the professor entered, wrote Biology 101 on the board, and said, "Welcome. This is the beginning for many of you." Something inside me lit up. This wasn't just a class. It was the first real step toward becoming the doctor I wanted to be, and I promised myself that no matter how hard it got, I would continue. College life was nothing like I imagined. In my mind, I thought students quietly sat, took notes, and listened. But in America, classes were loud, fast, and full of discussions. Students debated, asked questions, challenged the professor, even joked with him. At first, I felt lost. The words moved too quickly, and the scientific terms were difficult even in my native language. But I reminded myself, this is the price of my dream. Struggling in biology class, my biology professor, Dr. Whitman, spoke clearly but fast. He often said things like, "Observe the structure of eukaryotic cells, notice the mitochondria, the nucleus, the plasma membrane. I wrote as quickly as I could, but my notes looked like a storm of half-understood words. One day, after class, he approached me. "You look overwhelmed," he said kindly. I swallowed hard. "Yes, Professor. My English, still not perfect. But I try." He nodded. "You're doing more than trying. You're working hard. I notice that. Biology will get easier. Keep pushing." His words touched me deeply. Teachers back home rarely complimented students, but here, one sentence from a professor could light a fire inside you. Speech balloon study group friends. During the second week, a girl in class named Emily approached me. She was always smiling, with curly brown hair and a bright backpack full of markers. "We're forming a study group," she said. "Want to join?" My first instinct was to refuse. I was embarrassed about my English, but I forced myself to say yes. Our group met every Thursday in the library, for students, different backgrounds, one goal: to survive biology. Emily explained things slowly. Marcus helped me pronounce scientific terms. Sarah shared her notes, which were neat and colorful. They never made fun of me, never called my questions stupid. They treated me like a real classmate. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Sleeping symbol. The hardest night. One night, I returned home exhausted. Work at the grocery store had been chaotic, long lines, heavy boxes, no breaks. Then I rushed to college, where we had a quiz I barely understood. I sat on my mattress, opened my notebook, and felt defeated. "How long?" I whispered. "How long will it take to speak English like everyone else? How long until biology makes sense?" I closed my eyes and thought about home. My mother's face, her voice saying, "Work hard, my son. Make us proud." Those words always saved me. I opened my book again and kept studying, even when my eyes burned, even when my hands shook from tiredness, because dreams don't grow in comfort, they grow in struggle. The first exam. After a month, we had our first biology exam. The classroom was silent. Papers were placed face down on every desk. My heart pounded as I turned mine over. Some questions I understood immediately, others made me sweat, but I answered everything, slowly, carefully, praying I didn't misunderstand the wording. 2 days later, the results were posted. Emily rushed toward me, smiling. "Amir, check your grade." I walked slowly to the board. There were names and grades listed. When I found mine, I froze. B+, not an A. Not perfect, but a strong grade, better than I expected. I stared at it in disbelief. A B+, in an American college, in a subject taught in a language I was still learning. Emily cheered. "You did it. See? You're getting good." Dr. Whitman passed by and said, "Nice work, Amir. Keep this up." That moment felt like a door opening. A small door, maybe, but one that led toward the future I dreamed about. I walked home with a smile I couldn't hide. For the first time, I believed I wasn't just surviving in America. I was growing. My confidence was slowly growing, but so were the challenges. College classes were getting harder, work hours were increasing, and bills were piling up. Still, every day reminded me why I came to America: to change my life, to help people, to become a doctor. Briefcase. More hours, more responsibility. Mr. Rahman noticed I was improving with customers, and one day he said, "Amir, I want you to work the evening counter. More hours. More pay." I needed the money desperately, so I agreed, but it meant balancing college lectures, biology lab, homework, night shifts, studying English, helping my uncle at home. My schedule became brutal. Some nights I returned home at midnight and still had to study for a quiz. I would fall asleep with books open on my chest, but every time I thought about quitting, I remembered something my uncle had told me: "You are fighting for your future. Fight hard." So I did. Books. Chemistry, the next mountain after completing Biology 101. I enrolled in chemistry. Everyone said it was the hardest class for pre-med students. They weren't lying. Chemistry felt like learning a new language inside a language I still didn't fully know. Moles, ions, electron shells, chemical bonds, it all sounded complicated and abstract. My professor, Dr. Brittany Hayes, spoke sharply and quickly. She was brilliant but strict. On the first day, she said, "Look around you. Half of you will change your major by the end of this semester." Her words scared me, but they also motivated me. I didn't come this far to give up. A new study group. When Emily and Marcus moved on to different classes, I felt alone again, but soon I met 2 new students, both international like me: Lewis from Mexico, Hannah from South Korea. We all struggled with English in different ways, but that made us understand each other deeply. Every Friday, we met in the library basement. We drew chemical structures on whiteboards, solved equations, and taught each other the Parts we understood best, sometimes we laughed, sometimes we argued, sometimes we sat silently, overwhelmed, but we stayed together. One evening, Lewis said, "Hey guys, we're going to make it. I can feel it." I didn't answer, but I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I believed it too. Sign a moment of doubt halfway through the semester. We had a huge chemistry exam. I studied every night, sometimes until 3 a.m. but during the exam, the questions felt harder than anything I'd practiced. I could understand the chemistry, but the English wording confused me. At one point, I stared at a question and felt the room spinning. Panic rose in my chest. Why is this happening now? I whispered. I forced myself to breathe, answer slowly, and keep going. But when I left the exam hall, I felt empty. For the first time since coming to America, I wondered if I was in the wrong place. If maybe my dream was too big for someone like me. Love letter. Unexpected good news. The results came back a week later. I was terrified to check them. Lewis nudged me. "Come on, Hermano. Let's look together." I opened my online portal. My hands trembled. I got an A-. I blinked, thinking it was a mistake, but it was real. I turned to Hannah. She smiled and said softly, "See? Hard work pays." I felt something warm fill my chest, not pride and not relief, hope. For the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, becoming a doctor wasn't a dream anymore. It was a destination and I was walking toward it. My life was changing slowly, sometimes so slowly that I didn't even notice. But one day, I looked around and realized something. I was no longer the scared boy who couldn't order coffee. I was becoming someone stronger, someone who believed in himself. But the journey ahead was still long. Hospital. Volunteering at the hospital. After finishing chemistry, I knew I needed real experience in the medical world. So I applied to volunteer at a local hospital in Brooklyn. When I walked into the volunteer office, nervous and hopeful, a woman named Denise handed me a form. "Why do you want to volunteer here?" she asked. I took a breath. "I want to become a doctor. And I want to learn more. Help people." She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled warmly. "That's a good reason. We need people like you." 2 weeks later, I received an email saying I was accepted. I couldn't stop smiling as I ran to tell my uncle. "You see," he said proudly, "your hard work is opening doors, man." My first day in the emergency room. The emergency room, ER, was nothing like the quiet hospital scenes I imagined. It was loud, chaotic, and full of life. Nurses rushed from room to room. Doctors spoke quickly in medical language I could barely follow. Patients cried, moaned, or sat silently in pain. My job was simple. Bring blankets, clean stretchers, guide families, deliver water, help nurses with small tasks. But even these small tasks taught me lessons I could never learn from textbooks. One evening, an elderly woman grabbed my hand and said, "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. You're very kind." Her eyes were tired, but her smile was gentle. That moment stayed with me. Beating heart. A doctor who saw potential. One afternoon, I was helping a nurse move equipment when a tall doctor with glasses approached me. "You're the new volunteer, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I've seen you working. You're dedicated. What's your name?" "Amir," I said, surprised. He nodded. "I'm Dr. Patel. Keep doing what you're doing. Hard work matters in this field." Hearing that from a real doctor felt like someone lifted a heavy weight off my shoulders. Maybe I truly belonged here. Books. The toughest semester while volunteering, I was also taking anatomy and physiology in college, one of the hardest pre-med classes. The human body is beautiful, complicated, but also overwhelming. Muscles, bones, nerve pathways, digestive organs, heart chambers, blood circulation. Every chapter felt like a new mountain. I studied late into the night, sometimes until sunrise. My friends joked that I knew the library better than my own bedroom, but I didn't stop, because the hospital reminded me every day why I was doing this. I wasn't studying for grades. I was studying for the people I wanted to help. Electric light bulb. A moment that changed me. One night in the ER, a young boy came in shaking with a high fever. His mother was crying, completely panicked. I brought them blankets and stayed beside them until a nurse took over. The mother looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Oh, thank you for not leaving us alone." That night, walking home at midnight, the cold air hit my face, and for the first time, I felt something powerful. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is who I am meant to be. Not just a student, not just an immigrant learning English. A future doctor. As months passed, the hospital became like a second home to me. I knew the hallways, the nurses' names, the smell of disinfectant, the constant beeping of machines. Every shift taught me something new, not just about medicine, but about people, pain, hope, and life, but my own life was about to become even more challenging. Preparing for the big dream, pre-med requirements. One day, my academic advisor at the community college said, "Amir, if you want to apply to medical school, you need to transfer to a university. You'll need organic chemistry, physics, calculus, and more." The words hit me like a shock. Those classes were famous for being extremely difficult, even for native English speakers, but I nodded and said softly, "I will do it." Inside, I was terrified. Moneybag, working 2 jobs to afford university applications, books, transportation, and fees. I needed more income. So I took a second job at a small restaurant, washing dishes at night after the grocery store shift. My daily schedule became intense. 7 a.m., 1 p.m., grocery store 2 p.m., 6 p.m., college classes 7 p.m., 11 p.m., dishwashing job 11:30 p.m., 2 a.m., study weekends, hospital volunteering. Sometimes I slept only 4 hours. My body felt heavy. My eyes burned constantly, but every time I thought about quitting, I remembered my mother's words, and I kept going, because dreams demand sacrifices. Blue Book. Organic chemistry, the beast. Organic chemistry was unlike anything I had studied before. Instead of numbers and formulas, it was about structures, arrows, reactions, and mechanisms. Students called it the killer class. Even strong students failed. My professor, Dr. Williams, was brilliant but tough. He often said, "This class will test your mind and your discipline. If you survive organic chemistry, you have the heart for medical school." I struggled a lot. Some nights I stared at reaction mechanisms until they blurred on the page, but then, something interesting happened. Lewis and Hannah, my old study partners, joined the same class. When I saw them, my face lit up. "We're together again," Hannah said. "Let's fight this monster." Book study sessions that saved us every weekend. We met in the library's quiet room. We drew structures on giant whiteboards. We used colored markers. We explained reactions to each other again and again. Sometimes we spent 8 hours in that room without realizing. We survived on cheap coffee, instant noodles, determination, and the belief that we weren't alone. Those sessions didn't just help me academically, they saved my mental health. A moment of breakthrough. One night, I was working at the restaurant, washing dishes, when a reaction mechanism suddenly clicked in my mind. I dropped the sponge, wiped my wet hands on my apron, and grabbed my notebook. I wrote the reaction from memory, perfectly. I couldn't believe it. For months, organic chemistry had felt like a wall I kept running into, but that night, a small crack appeared in the wall. A sign that I was improving. A sign that I could do this. Memo. The exam that defined everything. The midterm exam for organic chemistry arrived. It was known as the hardest exam of the semester. When I saw the questions, my heart dropped, but instead of panicking, I took a deep breath. I studied for this. I'm ready. I drew structures carefully. I explained mechanisms step by step for the first time. The arrows, the bonds, the reactions, they made sense. When grades were posted a week later, I almost didn't look. Emily texted me, "Amir, check right now." I opened the portal slowly, an A in organic chemistry. I covered my face with my hands and whispered, "Thank you, God." It wasn't just a grade. It was proof, real proof, that I could survive pre-med. It was the biggest step I had taken yet. Louis stood outside the workshop in the early morning chill. The sky was still dark, and the streetlights made long shadows on the sidewalk. Chicago was quiet at this hour, but inside Louis's heart, a storm was rising. For the last 3 weeks, he had worked harder than ever. He cleaned leather, measured cloth, fetched shoes, carried boxes, and, when Mr. Thompson wasn't looking, practiced tiny stitches on scraps. His fingers were full of small cuts, but his skills were growing. Still, he felt invisible. Other apprentices had more experience. Some had family connections. Some were older and stronger. Louis felt like a small fish in a giant lake. And today, something new made him nervous. The shop was preparing for a visit from a famous client, Mrs. Harrison, the wife of a powerful businessman. She was known for her expensive taste and sharp eyes. Mr. Thompson told everyone, everything must be perfect. No mistakes. No casual work. Today decides our reputation. It was the kind of day when one move, good or bad, could change everything. A mistake that wasn't his fault. Inside the workshop, the air smelled of polish and leather. Louis checked the counters, dusted the display shelves, and arranged travel bags by size. He wanted to do everything perfectly. Just when he turned to leave, he heard a thud. A heavy bag fell from the top shelf. Before he could react, it landed on the polished handbag prepared for Mrs. Harrison. A deep scratch cut across the smooth leather. Louis froze. Another apprentice, Mark, the one who disliked Louis from the start, quickly whispered, "Don't say a word. If you tell them, you'll be blamed. Just walk away." Louis looked at him with disbelief. "But I didn't do it." Mark shrugged. "They'll believe you ruined it. Not me." Louis felt his chest tighten. If the shop believed he damaged the bag, he could lose his job. Lose his chance. Lose everything he had worked for doing the hard thing. Louis stared at the scratched handbag. It was ruined, unless a miracle happened. Should he lie? Should he pretend he didn't see anything? Should he let someone else fix the problem? His hands trembled, but his heart knew the answer. He picked up the handbag carefully and walked toward the back room where Mr. Thompson was preparing tools. "Sir," Louis said softly. Mr. Thompson turned, raising an eyebrow. "Yes?" Louis swallowed. "There's a scratch on Mrs. Harrison's handbag. It happened just now. I didn't damage it, but I want to fix it if you allow me." The room went silent. Mr. Thompson looked at the bag, then looked at Louis, trying to read his face. "You want to repair this? Do you even know how difficult this is?" Louis nodded. He didn't trust his voice anymore. Mr. Thompson sighed. "You're honest. That's rare. All right, show me what you can do." Louis gets his chance for the first time. Mr. Thompson placed special tools in Louis's hands, tools he had never been allowed to touch before. Louis cleaned the leather gently, warmed it, applied softening oil, and used tiny strokes to blend the scratch into the natural texture. His hands shook, but his focus became sharp. Minutes turned into an hour. Finally, Mr. Thompson leaned over the table. His eyes widened. "It's almost invisible," he whispered. "You did this." Louis nodded again, this time with a small, hopeful smile. Mr. Thompson placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Louis, you may be young, but you have real talent." Those were the words Louis had been waiting his whole life to hear. Outside, the sun finally rose, but inside the workshop, Louis felt something even brighter rise within him, the first true sign that his destiny was beginning. The next morning, Louis walked into the workshop with a confidence he had never felt before. The world looked a little brighter, the air a little warmer. Even the sound of the old workshop bell felt musical as he stepped inside. Mr. Thompson was already standing near the counter, polishing a suitcase. When he saw Louis, he nodded, not the usual quick nod, but a slow, respectful one. "Good to see you, Louis," he said. Those 5 simple words felt like a medal pinned on Louis's chest. The visit that changed everything. At noon, the workshop filled with quiet tension as Mrs. Harrison arrived. She stepped inside with elegance, wearing pearl earrings, a soft grey coat, and an expression that suggested she rarely said thank you. Her eyes traveled across the shelves until Mr. Thompson presented the repaired handbag. "This," he said proudly, "is your piece." She examined it closely. Very closely. Louis held his breath. Everyone did. After a long pause, her expression softened just a bit, barely noticeable. "This," she said, "is impeccable work." Then she added, "Better than when I first saw it." Mr. Thompson smiled. "One of our apprentices repaired it." She looked around. "Where is he?" Louis stepped forward nervously. I'm here." Her sharp eyes met his. "You have steady hands," she said. "And a good eye. That is unusual for someone your age." Louis felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Thank you." Mrs. Harrison nodded once, then turned to Mr. Thompson. "This young man will go far. Keep him under your wing." And just like that, she left. The truth comes out as soon as the door closed. Mark, the jealous apprentice, spoke loudly enough for Louis to hear. "He just got lucky." Mr. Thompson turned to him sharply. "Actually, Mark, I reviewed the workshop's backroom mirror footage. I know exactly who caused the damage." Mark froze. Mr. Thompson continued, "Louis didn't blame you. He didn't speak a single word against you. That shows character." Mark's face burned red with embarrassment. He looked away, saying nothing. Louis felt no joy from Mark's humiliation. But he did feel something else. Justice. A new position later that day, Mr. Thompson called Louis into the back office. The room smelled of cedar and leather, an office Louis had only peeked into before. Close the door, Mr. Thompson said. Louis swallowed and shut it softly. Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair. You've shown honesty, discipline, attention to detail, and a rare talent. I'd like to offer you a new position. Louis blinked. A new position? Yes. Starting tomorrow, you will no longer be a general helper. You will be my assistant. You'll learn design, repair, crafting, and customer work, everything. Louis stared, stunned. Sir, are you sure? Very sure. You've earned it. A warm, overwhelming feeling filled Louis's chest. For the first time since he arrived in America, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was rising. A letter from home after work. Louis walked back to the small shared room he rented. The evening air was cold but wonderful on his face. Inside his mailbox was a single envelope from France. His hand shook slightly as he opened it. My dear Louis, the letter began, we miss you. We hope you are safe. We pray your dreams are still alive. As he read the familiar handwriting, tears formed in his eyes. His dreams were alive. In fact, they were finally starting to bloom, but he still had a long journey ahead, and even bigger dreams waiting. The day I put on my white coat for the first time, I felt the weight of every moment that had brought me here, every late-night study session, every struggle with English, every small victory that kept me going. But before that day came, I had to pass the final obstacle, the residency board interview. I walked into the hospital's conference room with my heart knocking inside my chest. 3 doctors sat behind a table, serious faces, sharp eyes. I took a deep breath and reminded myself, you've worked for this. You belong here. Dr. Sanders, the head of the program, asked the first question. Tell us why you chose medicine. I swallowed. Then I told them the truth. When I first came to the United States, I couldn't speak English. I felt lost everywhere, on the bus, in the store, even in a coffee shop. But one thing never changed, I wanted to help people. Medicine gave my life purpose. Learning English was the first step. Becoming a doctor is the second. The room was silent for a moment, but it was a good silence. Dr. Sanders nodded slowly. Impressive. Continue. And I did. Days passed. I checked my phone every few minutes, emails, messages, notifications, but not the one I wanted. Then one afternoon, as I was eating lunch alone, my phone rang. Hello. Is this Louis? Yes, speaking. This is Dr. Sanders. I wanted to call you personally. I held my breath. Congratulations. You've been accepted into our residency program. The world stood still. I closed my eyes and let the moment wash over me. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Thank you so much, I whispered. On the morning of orientation, I stood in front of the hospital mirror wearing a long white coat. My name was printed clearly, the Dr. Luis Ramirez, resident physician. I ran my fingers over the letters, unable to believe they were real. As I walked through the hallways, nurses nodded politely, doctors passed by with friendly smiles, patients looked at me with hope. I wasn't just someone learning English anymore. I wasn't an immigrant trying to survive. I was a doctor. A real one. A nurse approached me. Dr. Ramirez, your first patient is in room 14. My heart raced, but I walked in with confidence. An elderly woman lay in the bed, looking tired and afraid. I introduced myself gently. Hello. I'm Dr. Ramirez. I'll be taking care of you today. She smiled. You remind me of my grandson. Thank you for being here. At that moment, I understood something powerful. Every struggle I went through, every night I spent learning English, every setback, every fear, it was all worth it, because now I could help people. That evening, as I walked out of the hospital in my white coat, I looked up at the sky. Years ago, on a cold night in Brooklyn, I had made myself a promise. I will learn English. No matter how long it takes. I will become a doctor. And now, I had kept that promise. Dreams don't require perfect English. Dreams don't require a perfect life. Dreams require courage, patience, and the decision to never give up. If I could do it, you can too.